I've done so many performances that were like free to watch and very good music, and you have maybe like 2 people watching.
I love performing so much because, you know, when you cook for somebody and you really love cooking, you want somebody to eat your food, right? That's it. I cooked up something to serve with all my heart. I experiment a little bit this time. Would you like to try? And some people actually said it was good. So I tried different things, and I really spent time to cook this food. Yeah. So that's how I feel. And everybody tell me, oh my God, it was so good. It was so enjoyable. It was really different, but I really enjoyed your cooking. That's exactly the way. It's a joy for me. But when I want to express this great music, I don't have a place to show. So many people ask me, when are you playing? I don't have any shows coming up.
Present day and age, it is very, very difficult for a person to actually make a living as a musician to start off with, never mind a jazz musician. Unfortunately, I got a very dubious, when you Google me, the first thing that says, Jeremy Monteiro says that we are educating the next generation of jobless musicians. And it's quite true, because nowadays there's so many great musicians coming out and less work and less opportunity to sell your music and sell tickets to shows.
Because I saw so much talent here, and you know, it's sad sometimes to see so many talents that's just fading out sometimes, or being very negative, and also see a lot of people not being happy. But then I realize it's quite normal.
It's more difficult these days to perform and reach the same kind of audiences as we could in the past. So it's always a kind of struggle to generate audiences and convince people to come and listen to music.
Big hotels for jazz have always been crucial in its survival in Asia, really. It's set up actually interesting ideas about what jazz is in Asia as a kind of classy, upper class, you know, the Bill Murray Lost in Translation kind of thing, you know, jazz and cigars, you know, and whiskey. It's got that because it was really only played in raffles, or it was really only played in these kind of high classy jazz bars, where all of that is completely ironic. If you think about the origins of where jazz came from in Storyville in New Orleans. Hotels were very important, I think, for the sustainability of jazz, whether it even be just a piano bar or whatever. I think that, and the 90s, from all I can gather from the oral histories and things that people talk about, was very vibrant. When I arrived here, it was very vibrant in the first decade of this century, actually. I mean, there were many clubs here. There were lots of places you can go and see jazz, and there were lots of jam sessions. I mean, you had Harry's still going, you had Southbridge still going strong, and they were 2 jazz clubs, you know, a stone's throw away from each other, you know, in Boat Quay. The big fissure in this whole thing was 2008. I think that after the financial crisis, it just couldn't sustain it. It just couldn't sustain that amount of activity. And it's been struggling since then. That's over 10 years ago. So what does that mean? There's clubs have come and gone. There's just trying to set up, but just can't get momentum. So you can't get a regular gig there, you can't build an audience, you can't do lots of things. Blue jazz started around then, or just before then, and survived all of this time. But it wasn't an economic thing that actually closed it down at the end of all of that. Economically, it actually is surviving, I mean, really surviving. There were non-economic issues that actually made it close down, unfortunately, in the end. I mean, not close down, but stop playing music. Yeah, well, essentially closing down from music. So that's an issue in this town, getting some consistency with venues. Yeah, so you can kind of build a scene, so there's a place to go.
Well, blue jazz, it was kind of a safe space. For the third floor, it was a performance space where you didn't really have to pay for the venue. And you know, in Singapore, most places are ridiculously expensive to book. So for the third floor, all you had to do was get enough people to come and buy drinks. And that worked out very well for most people. And that's important because if you're a new musician starting out, you're not gonna be able to pull enough people or enough money to pay for most performing venues in Singapore.
Of course, there are places to play, but not every venue or opportunity is meant for everybody. So it's not handy. There's no specific place for the artistic jazz musicians to go. Without this, somebody's always suffering. So it's very hard to inspire the young people or ourselves. And at the moment, it's very difficult in Singapore. I want to cry.
I'm Yi Hao and I play the trumpet. I'm currently studying music collaboration and production at Yongsu-Do Conservatory of Music. One of my life-changing moments was when I first heard Wynton Marsalis live. Just being able to hear his sound for the first time live, that was a life-changing experience. Because none of the recordings I've listened to actually replicate the sound that you hear live and the intimacy of that experience. Just being able to feel his sound in the moment, that was life-changing.
To be switched on to jazz, I think for me it was quite clear. It was about encounters, and it was about encountering the music live. The strongest impression and the strongest moving feeling that I can remember is live encounters. And I had a couple, not many, but a couple.
The difference between live music and, say, recorded music is that when it comes to recorded music, oftentimes we are in control. You know, we can pause it, we can play it whenever we want, we can skip the parts we don't like or the parts that we think are boring, we can skip to the next song. But in a live performance, you are not in control. And that can be, in a way, terrifying, but at the same time liberating.
I find that the audience in Singapore is different compared to other countries, depending on the venue, depending on the environment that you put the audience in. You know, even if you put them into a jazz club that's in Singapore and it is set up for the music, once you enter the room, you feel like you shouldn't be talking. You should have your phone on silent. The focus should be on the stage. The focus is that something special is going to happen in front of you and that you should respect it because it's going to give you something back.
Improvisation is the hallmark of jazz, and I love the exuberance, I love the interplay between the musicians. Professional jazz musicians know anything from 300 to 2,000 jazz standard tunes from memory. So if you were to get together with someone, even with 300 tunes repertoire, and you'll definitely come up with minimum 20 songs that you both know. And that's why you can just get together and go 1, 2, 3, 4, and just start playing. And you know, everyone knows the tune as though we've rehearsed it.
I
think the pressure of wanting to be perfect in executing any solo or lines is too much for any human being to bear. Not just on stage, but in life as well. Perfection is unattainable, let's just face it. Having that pressure off of you ironically puts you in a position where you're free to express yourself.
At the first night of Wynton Marsalis's concert, he said this quote that I found very powerful: not perfection in execution, but perfection in intention. And I think that's what live music is about. You let yourself be free of all decision making and just be in the moment to experience what that person has to say. And like with all things human, you know, we don't say things perfectly. No matter how much you think about what you're gonna say, you're gonna be able to think of it again in the future and say, damn, I should have said it this way instead. You know, it's never perfect. That's what live music is as compared to recorded music. It's not perfect, but it's more sincere, it's raw, it's honest. And I think we always crave integrity.
Jazz is precious to me because it's what I do. It is my medium of expression. It is my passion. It is the love of my life. You know, it is everything that I breathe and I dream.
You know, sometimes you're not well practiced, you know, and your mind wants you to do a certain thing, and your hands almost look up to you and says, "You want me to do what?" Because you know, because it's not in shape, right? But when it's all working, everything's working. The feeling is wonderful.
For me, pursuing music was basically what I wanted to do. There was no other choice that came to mind, even though I could have done a lot of other things, because it basically meant everything to me, and I just could not see myself doing anything else.
I think for every artist is that you find your truth in a medium, and then you use that medium to express what you want to feel, want to see deep inside. And for me, that's jazz.
I think I've seen it time and time again in many different situations and even in different countries, how people connect with music. It's really cross cultures, cross boundaries, cross languages.
And you know how they say music is a universal language?
It brings people together regardless of language, especially because I'm an instrumentalist. I connect with people over music very, very easily.
Music is about creativity, and each musician brings something of their own to the table, whether it's why they're playing music or what they're trying to say with their music. So music and art, I think, is the reason why we live. Beyond surviving, I don't think there is actually a reason to live. Why live, you know? And the answer to that for me is art.
Jazz musicians work their asses off. I'm not saying other genres they don't. It's a lot of hard work. Art is hard work, which is why I don't understand why a lot of people think that art is free. It's not free. It takes a whole life to perfect something, and maybe you don't even get close to what you think is perfection in one lifetime.
You know, people always like to tell musicians, not just me, but many musicians who work hard at our craft, say, wow, you know, you look like it was so effortless. But it took, you know, thousands of hours of great effort to get it to a point where someone watching the performance perceives it to be effortless on the part of the artist.
It takes so much of hard work to be an artist, to practice your craft, to hone your craft, to make it something good. How is that free? I think that arts administrators, curators, and bar owners have as much of a responsibility as the artists and the audience. I think that these three components creates the main ecosystem of the arts. It's not just about thinking about them as a separate entity when it comes to the scene, the ecosystem of a genre of music or arts in general, is that you have to work cohesively together and understand how to make it work.
And there's something really special about not playing music by yourself, but with a friend or with a group of like-minded colleagues. It just magnifies everything. The joy, the sound, the volume. That's how I get kids interested and hooked. Because if you love it, it sort of stays. You always have fond memories, and I think it still keeps the door open to discovering new things in that beautiful thing that we call music.
The old-fashioned way.
I think one of the most positive changes just happened where jazz was introduced into the music O-level syllabus, and I think that is a huge step, because the reason why jazz is in its state today in Singapore is because there isn't a strong enough or big enough audience that appreciates it. So hopefully in the next 10 years, when these younger people actually even know what jazz is, they hear it in a bar or a live music venue and they can identify what it is, they appreciate it, then that's where we'll really see demand for jazz start to go up. Yeah, education.
The Jazz Association of Singapore actually has a few main goals. One is to try and play our part together with other stakeholders to raise the level of excellence of jazz in Singapore, to bring jazz to people of all corners of Singapore and all walks of life. And one way we make our people curious and find jazz familiar is to take well-known folk songs, Chinese, Malay songs even, and do really, really nice, classy jazz arrangements so that it can sort of latch on to the familiarity of the tunes they know, but then hear this lush jazz harmonies and this swinging band playing it, as a way of being a door into the music.
I think community-driven and community-run, not-for-profit venue should be the solution. I really believe so, and this hasn't happened.
I'm about sustainability, so whatever I've tried to set up, I try to think through, can we keep this going for 10 years? I don't think anything really is sustained until it's at least 10 years old. You systemize things so much that it can run really cheaply and it can run and sustain people.
Singaporeans do flock to concerts, so very often jazz concerts, whether free or ticketed, are very well attended. For example, my Jazzy Christmas concert every year, I've done 13 now, I can fill up 13 to 15 or 1600 seats at the Esplanade Concert Hall. And then sometimes I play a jazz gig at a club and it's not necessarily well attended. And I think not all Singapore jazz fans like bars, right? So the environment that they want to listen to the music may not be bars. So maybe proprietors that want to present jazz can think of other ways, maybe jazz in cafes or in a different environment that they can hire musicians and find a way to make enough money to run their operations as well, but not always to do with bars.
I think for a lot of people who are contemplating whether to go to a concert and end up not going, usually it's because they can't find friends to go there with, or they just feel too lazy to travel, right? And I think that's fair, especially not finding someone to go with, because for a lot of people, this live concerts, live music, it's a social experience for them. So what I would say is to approach it differently actually. Think of it not as something social, but as an experience to really take you out of life for a moment, for you to really not just have fun, but for you to be healed in a spiritual sense.